Well, good evening from my home in London, and I'll explain why in a moment. But welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Grief doesn't work differently in a war zone. Every number means a ripple of misery. A grieving mother or a devastated brother or son. Best friends whose laughter will never be heard together again. The scale of the grief in Israel and Gaza right now is incalculable. And among the dead are a simply staggering number of people who gave their lives for their duties and their jobs. More than 100 aid workers, more than 220 doctors, nurses and paramedics. And so far, 61 journalists have been killed too. 4 Israelis, 3 Lebanese and 54 Palestinians. These were all people who put their safety on the line to keep other people alive and to show the world what's really happening. Now they've paid the ultimate price. Well, this anchor and correspondent broke down in tears as they learned of the death of a colleague.
ضحايا شهداء مع فرق التوقيت فقط نحن نمضي واحدا تلو الآخر ولا أحد ينظر إلينا ولا إلى حجم الكارثة والجريمة التي نعيشها في غزة.
Well, as I say, grief doesn't work any differently in a war zone. In fact, it's more accentuated. The Committee to Protect Journalists said 68 media workers were killed worldwide last year. That makes the last month the deadliest in recorded history for journalists. Al Jazeera journalist Wael Dardou was broadcasting live when he heard the Israeli airstrike that hit the house his family were sheltering in. He was still on air when he took the call to say that his wife, his son, his daughter and his grandson had all been killed. I can't even begin to imagine how somebody like him had the strength to wake up in the morning after that and go back to work, but he did. His situation is a small window into the hellish world of journalism in the world's deadliest war. Reporting in a place like Gaza is extraordinarily complicated and absolutely vital. International reporters just can't get in freely. Neither Israel nor Egypt will allow them to enter unless they're closely guarded. And the local journalists gathering all of the footage that we're seeing, including those working for big Western media outlets, face the same life and death challenges as everybody else. They too will have family members under fire all day, every day. There is no safe place for any of them to go. The difference is that they run towards danger with cameras and microphones to help the rest of us understand the reality of this war. In a world where many people think being a war correspondent means sitting in their parents' basements, posting waspish takes on Twitter, now X, they are maybe less appreciated, less noticed, but they've never been more important. Well, my first guest tonight, who I'll introduce in a moment, is the perfect person to talk about all this. But before I get to him, I just want to explain what I'm doing sitting here at home in West London. I've never done a show from my home before. I've got COVID, tested positive for COVID this afternoon. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what the new rules were. I didn't know if you're supposed to just crack on and go to work and merrily infect all your co-workers, or be what I thought was probably the more responsible thing to do, which is to try and do it from home. So here we are. We've got a great 2-man crew with me who both recently had COVID. So that's why they're with me. And we're going to try and get through it probably tonight, tomorrow and Thursday. And there's no reason why we can't, because let's face it, work from home is the new thing, right? Anyway, my first guest, like I said, is the perfect person, I think, to put real perspective on the state of the world right now. There are so many things I wanted to talk to him about in the last few weeks. Of course, the Israel-Hamas war, Ukraine, what is going to happen there. His great friend, Henry Kissinger, who he's halfway through writing a momentous volumes of biography about. And what, of course, is happening in London tomorrow with Boris Johnson, our former Prime Minister, which brings the link back to COVID. Seems quite ironic that I go down with COVID, just as Boris Johnson will be facing the music at the public inquiry into COVID, where many, including me, believe that he made a series of shambolic errors and made some successful moves, like the vaccines, but made a lot of shambolic errors early on, which almost certainly cost many thousands of lives.